Nerdherfers, it's your old pal Larry Brantley coming at you with an extra bonus episode of your, let's call it, fifth or sixth favorite podcast out there. We don't know. This is a basic continuation of episode 5, where we titled that It Just Hits Different. Micah had asked a compelling question, and it was so compelling that we were compelled to talk way into the night, and we just couldn't fit that into a single episode. So we're going to bonus the rest of that material for you this week. We're going to get into Marvel movies, we're going to get into comic books, we're going to get into movies, all the nerdy stuff that you know and love. So sit back, relax, light up a cigar, grab your favorite bottle of whiskey, and enjoy this week's bonus episode of Nerdherfers. And now, and you can compare that with, I have a buddy who was a DC Universe fan. And so where I was collecting all the Marvels, he was collecting all the DC. He was, Batman and Superman and the Flash and the Justice League. And that poor son of a bitch still hasn't had a good movie made.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, now, maybe that changes now that James Gunn is taking over.
We'll see.
I remain skeptical because I feel like Marvel's sins have largely been forgotten because they were so long ago. That awful Spider-Man series, the Cap series, there was even a Thor thing. But they're in such the dim past that they've largely been forgotten. And so Marvel can be forgiven, but DC has had so many failures in terms of the cinema world that it's like, do they even have an audience anymore?
Now,
I don't know.
Contrary to
Hang
that,
on, he's going to say something.
Well, before we leave the Marvel thing, I just wanted to talk about one other part, because we talked about like the past and the present. And, one of the things that I wanted to bring up along the lines of Marvel was Daredevil specifically, not only because I love him, but reading the original comics when I was a kid, reading them again as an adult, and then catching the Netflix Marvel series, which is by far the best representation of Daredevil that can be. I'm sorry, Ben. Sorry, Ben.
No.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
The only thing that Ben did right in that movie was at the very, very beginning when he's sitting on a ceiling fan and he's like, "Who the hell is that?" And he's like, "Justice." And he comes down and he like pummels everybody. I'm like, okay, that was cool. And the rest of the movie I can forego.
Yeah.
Here's what I wanted to say. In the comics, one of the things that I've always loved about Daredevil is the internal conflict. Very similar to Spider-Man. The internal conflict that Daredevil goes through is that he's Catholic, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, he comes so close to killing when he exacts justice, and he pulls back at the moment necessary. And that's where the Netflix Daredevil series really shine.
Agreed.
Because they got so far into his faith and his morals, and when is it okay to cross the line? And those moments when he had decided that I'm going after Kingpin and I'm going to drop his ass. That he cannot be on the planet. He cannot be on the planet anymore. I need to do it. And in the end, he had that wonderful moment where he was in his full Daredevil getup, and he has pummeled Kingpin to the ground. And at the last second, he still makes the decision to stick to his morals.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about that?
I love it. So in terms of adaptation, it's absolutely one of my favorites. Number one, and we talked about this a little bit last week with like sort of George Lucas's strength as a director is in the small story. So one of the things I always loved about Marvel is like, yes, you've got these overarching, the universe is at stake or whatever, but it goes right down to street level.
Yes.
And Hell's Kitchen in New York City, and Daredevil, it's just my absolute favorite. Also, and I will say this, knowing that he'll never listen to this episode, but they finally got the best casting for the Punisher.
Oh,
John Bernthal,
100%.
is one of my favorite actors.
John Bernthal, right?
Ever, yes.
Bernthal.
But
Bernthal?
he's an intelligent
Bernthal,
man. He's an actor's actor, but he got Frank Castle. He got that character from the beginning, and I think it's in season 2 where they're working together.
Yep.
and I have already heard rumors that the new Daredevil series, I think it's called Born Again.
Born Again, yes.
Is also going to feature the Punisher. But I agree with you. I think it's great. Again, it is a question of finding the right people to write the story and direct the story.
Definitely.
And it's not about any one actor coming to the fore and making themselves a star. Within Daredevil, let's just stay within Daredevil. I think Charlie Cox has captured that inner conflict that is just constant.
Absolutely.
And also the fact, and I just love this as a choice, that you almost never see Charlie Cox without some sort of injury. He's always got a laceration or a bruise.
Yeah.
Like he's always messed up. Same with Frank Castle's character, the Punisher. Because, justice don't take no coffee breaks. So, props to the MCU for doing that. And then also props to the MCU because I'm getting a bit into the weeds here, but we're nerds and that's what we do. So here we go. When the Writers Guild went on strike and the Screen Actors Guild joined them, it shut down Daredevil Born Again before a roll of film could be shot. Not that they shoot on film, they shoot digitally, we all know that. But during the interim, Feige and some others went back and revisited their plans for that series and decided they were going in the wrong direction. They were not staying true to the grittiness and the darkness and the conflict. And they were doing that, I believe, because Disney. And finally, because he's Feige and because he can do this, he went back to the powers that be and said, look, what made this show so successful was the style and manner in which we did it the first time. And we have to stay true to that. If we don't, we're not being true to our audience. We're not being true to Daredevil fans. We're not being true to the source material.
Oh, yeah.
And so they decided during that strike that that's what they were going to do. In the new series, they hadn't planned to bring back Karen and Foggy. It was going to be a completely different thing. And then, so there was, they've had some skips, Marvel has. And one of them I would argue is She-Hulk, which it was like Ally McBeal, but with a big green woman. And he makes a cameo in this suit that made him look like he was the Heinz Ketchup man.
Yeah.
I got
the red and gold.
Yeah, the yellow specifically.
Yeah,
yellow.
It wasn't gold. It was yellow.
Yeah.
It was yellow.
And the only reason I think they did that was to pay tribute to the yellow and red costume that he had in the comics. And I always had a problem with that because he works at night. He has to utilize all of the things around him, the darkness. He has to utilize these different things to make him successful in what he does.
Agreed. So I give Marvel credit for taking a step back and realizing, hey, we got to be true to the people that got us here. And what got us here was that dark, gritty story.
Yeah.
And if that's not one that Disney wants to make, then maybe we shouldn't make it. And the fact that they're even bringing John Bernthal back as the Punisher tells me that, Feige got his point across.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy about that because, again, from a thing I loved to childhood, to see it transplanted successfully, in my opinion, into the world of television and film makes me so happy.
Yep.
So happy.
And one of the things that I want to add about the Punisher real quick is with the previous movies that had come out, I have forgotten one of them. I know Ray Stevens played him at one time. Mm-hmm. The various movies that came out for Punisher before, until we got to John, that was the first time I felt the character's real pain. The reason why the Punisher does what he does. Mm-hmm. The reason why he doesn't have restraint. He doesn't have, he doesn't practice any kind of restraint.
Do you think that if Karen and Foggy, if Daredevil didn't have Karen and Foggy, that he would stay restrained?
That is one of the great, what ifs about the show.
That's what, yeah.
Well, is because, because I think that good writers want you to speculate on stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because
it's like they're his anchor, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, well, in the Netflix version of Daredevil, this is particularly important because they take the Foggy character and the Karen character in a different direction from the comics. Mm-hmm. So I think that in the comics, the Foggy and Karen characters ground Daredevil because if somebody finds out who he is and who he's connected with, and they're in trouble. Mm-hmm. In this one, they made both of those characters fallible. And that's important because Karen in the Netflix version is a murderer.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
for her reasons,
Right.
but she's a murderer, and then once everybody finds out, then she's got to process that pain. She's got to process that day to day. So yeah,
Yeah, I commend them on taking something that I love from my childhood and making it as good as I remembered, true to the source material. So, you know, I'm definitely not tooting my own horn here because I didn't write any episodes of Wishbone when I worked on it in the 1990s. But one of the things that our showrunner, Stephanie Simpson, demanded of her writing team is that we will stay true to the source material. Yes, this is a show for kids, but these are universal themes of humanity that we're dealing with in classic literature, whether it's Shakespeare or whether it's Moliere or whether it's Conan Doyle or whoever it is. We're going to stay true to the source material. And if kids have questions after seeing an episode about what happened or why they were talking like that, that's a good thing.
Moliere really pumps my nads.
That's funny. We had that on a t-shirt. That was a crew t-shirt in 1997. Yeah, Moliere really pumps my nads. It was before hashtags, though, so we didn't have that.
All right.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's fantastic. All right. So you feeling good about that? The Marvel? Is there anything else that you want to add for that?
No, I one of the ways that I know is that they're doing good by me is I'm anticipating next. You know?
Yeah.
I've never walked out of a Marvel movie and gone, well, if they take a little while between that and the next one, that's okay with me.
Well, I kind of felt like that about Thor: Dark World, but you know, I warmed up to it.
I felt that way about that new King Kong Godzilla movie.
Oh man,
I was like, if you guys want to wait 10 years until you get a good story, okay.
It's really okay if you
What
do.
is a good kaiju story,
Yeah,
though?
that's
Right.
true.
You know,
Although
when is
they're
it not the
trying.
game Rampage?
Right, exactly.
They're trying. But that is something that I find interesting too, is because when we were little, we watched the old Godzilla movies. We thought they were awesome. We may have even then already had questions about the validity of the costumes. But again, when you're a kid, the beautiful thing about childhood is your ability to just completely suspend your disbelief, right? And when I watch a movie or a television show, that is almost number one on my list. Not a documentary or something like that, but when I'm watching like a Marvel or I'm watching a fantasy show or something like that, I'm a jaded adult. I've seen and done a lot of shit. I am cynical. I am a skeptic. Are you able to help me suspend my disbelief for 2 hours or 30 minutes or however long the thing is? Because if you can do that, I'm loyal to you.
You made a costume comment a couple seconds ago, and I think that's one of the nice things that the MCU has been doing, because you know you get your costume, and I feel like the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man costume at the time was fantastic.
Mhm.
I loved the webbing over the
Yeah.
over the costume, and then the ability to like see those action sequences where he's flying towards a building and you actually see him hit the reflective building for the first time and
Mhm.
see his full costume,
Mhm.
and he just looks amazing. So
there's a scene in that movie that's really funny, and I didn't get it at the time until I got some behind the scenes knowledge. But apparently, Tobey Maguire has a really bad back. And
well, he fell off a building.
well, the scene where he falls off, where he's learning how to use his powers,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
falls off and he hits the thing and he goes, "Oh, my back!" That was totally that. That's totally him doing that.
So the
Yeah.
costume thing, I wanted to say that one of the things that I really like about what the MCU is doing, and they've done it a couple times. I don't know if you guys have seen it or noticed it specifically, but in regards to Captain America, is that in Captain America: First Avenger, they have him wearing the classic costume,
Yes.
and it's cloth and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he is the dancing monkey.
Right.
And they do that to show the ridiculousness, and then they give us the MCU cool ass costume.
Right.
Something happened. Anybody see Netflix Jessica Jones?
Oh yeah.
So does anybody know what Jessica Jones' original superhero character name was?
Oh, you told us,
God.
and now I forgot.
Was it Starlight?
It was
No.
Jewel.
Jewel.
That's right.
And what
She
was
had a
cool?
white and purple costume.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was cool was that while you're experiencing Jessica Jones's pain, and then they show the costume, and she's basically like, "I ain't putting that shit on." And I love that because they're paying tribute. They did the same thing in WandaVision,
Yeah.
where they took the classic costumes and put them on a Halloween type episode,
Right.
Yeah.
where Vision and Wanda are wearing the classic costumes,
I
but
remember
on the
that.
street, and they're just ridiculous.
Well,
You know,
and there's
although-
that scene in X-Men too, where Wolverine talks about the yellow spandex.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
I can even carry that one further. Although it wasn't my favorite of the street level Netflix series of Marvel superheroes, Luke Cage.
They did.
They had him wearing the color that he had. They never had him wearing that ridiculous 70s outfit that Luke Cage wore.
Right.
But there was a lot of reference to it, including like the metal headband that he wore when he was institutionalized.
Because when he was institutionalized, yeah, they were showing that these are the components
Mhm.
of the costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have great respect for stuff like that. That's all part of the storytelling and the homage, and I'm just a huge fan of it. Going back to the whole kaiju thing, it does absolutely seem as though the concept of the kaiju movie has definitely made a comeback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Because,
love Pacific Rim.
It was fun.
Yeah,
That was a
so
great movie.
that was like, that's that is combining two of my favorite things, giant robots and monsters.
Yeah.
And
it was just
not living together in harmony.
It was just campy enough, right? Like, it took itself seriously, but not too seriously.
Yep.
And that was what made that movie
Well,
so great.
you've got Charlie Day in it, and I mean
Yeah.
he's just funny in
Well, you
anything.
also
he's
have
in.
Idris Elba. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, that to me was the contrast, right? It's
Yeah.
like you got Idris Elba and Charlie Hunnam
Yeah.
in the original Pacific Rim, but then you had the comic relief, Charlie Day, and the English actor. He's very funny.
I do not know
His name
name.
escapes me at the
Yeah,
moment.
I
He's
know
kind
you're
of
talking
funny looking as
Yeah,
well.
I know you're talking about.
But the two professorial types
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
were, running around like chickens with their heads cut off. But man, Godzilla's made a screaming comeback.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love Godzilla. I mean, when I was a kid,
I love that song by Blue Oyster Cult.
Okay, when I was a kid, I used to stay at my grandmother's house, and we had a routine every day, and she would watch her soap operas on Channel 8.
Did she
ABC.
call them her shows?
her shows? She'd
Yeah.
watch her shows, her stories. I'm
Her
sorry.
stories.
Her
Stories. That's
Yes.
the right one. Yes.
That was the
Stories.
one.
We're gonna watch my stories.
Go watch my stories.
And then at 3:00, when her stories were over, it was snack time, and then ABC had the afternoon movie.
Yes.
And 9 times out of 10, it was King Kong or Godzilla or something along that line. And that's what I cared about. Like, I suffered through the stories to get to snack time in that movie.
That's
I mean,
funny.
Oh,
I just thought of another one, you guys. When I was a kid, Saturday afternoons on a local cable television show
Yeah.
or channel, it was Kung Fu movies.
Channel 11.
Kung Fu movies. Well, I wasn't here. I was down in the Houston area.
For us, it was Channel 11. It was KTVT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I need to actually go back and revisit some of those. But I have a feel because basically those movies caused me to become a martial artist. That and the fact that I was no good at team sports. And when I think when I was 6 or 7, in desperation, my dad stuck me in a local judo class that was taught by a guy whose name I can still remember. His name was Mike Law. And I think he was from Columbus, Ohio. And suddenly, when I didn't have to think about other people depending on me, I cleaned up. And so I became a martial artist for life. I studied martial arts all over the world. But it all started from watching those shows. And yes, we know the dubbing is bad. And yes, we know. But it was the heart that I loved about those movies.
I expected, when I got my first fight, I was very disappointed that it didn't sound the way those Kung Fu movies did.
I want to take a break for a second and talk about the Scotch for a moment, because when we first critiqued it, we did it neat. And now, as we've been sitting here talking, and if you get me talking on Marvel, then the only thing that exists is Marvel. And
Understood.
so now that my ice has had a chance to kind of permeate the Scotch a little bit, adding the water,
Yeah.
Much like you were talking about before, it smoothed it out for me
Yeah,
quite a
tremendously.
bit.
Yeah.
I like it cold. I preferred it neat, but I liked it cold. It just gave me a different experience. What did you guys feel?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the whole point of putting ice and or water into your drink. And I never finished my story about the master distiller at Glenlivet because I was sitting with him at an event. I was an ambassador for the Glenlivet, and I basically got that job because of two reasons. Number one, I could pull off a very believable Scottish accent. Number two, I look damn good in the kilt, and I still do. I got my mother's legs, no lie. So we were at a private tasting party, and I'd done the whole line and done the whole dog and pony show. So now I'm sitting with the master distiller of the Glenlivet, who was in from Scotland.
Is there more than one? Every time somebody says master distiller, I always think to
Well, every
myself,
distillery
there's
has
this
one.
person
Every
that
distillery
comes
has
from a distillery
Yeah.
that sits on a throne.
It's kind of like, in breweries, you have the brewmaster,
Yeah.
or you have the winemaker in your winery.
So what that job title is like a single malt Scotch doesn't mean, and a lot of people make this mistake, doesn't mean that all that Scotch came from the same barrel or whatever. It means it came from the same run of grain, right? That's a single malt.
Yep.
Now they'll have several casks, and those casks are at various stages of maturation. And what the master distiller / master blender does is he pulls from each of these to get the blend that he wants.
Okay.
And says, okay, this will be our final product. When we're ready to bottle, we're going to take X amount from this, X amount from this. None of it aged less than 12 years if it's age specific, right? And we're going to blend those barrels together to make this single malt Scotch. And so that's all very cool sounding and a little snobbish. But after the event, I sat down with this gentleman and I said, and he was very quick to tell me that he said the majority of the snobbishness he encounters is in America. Because in America, we're very opinionated about everything under the sun. And so no surprise, Scotch lovers are very opinionated about how you should be drinking your Scotch.
Oh, I should hope everybody can hear my nods.
And then I asked him his opinion. And this is what he said to me. No lie. He goes, I don't care if you drink it neat. I don't care if you add a bit of water to it. I don't care if you put ice in it. I don't care if you put ginger ale in it. As long as you're drinking my Scotch. Do it how you like it. Why wouldn't you? I was like, that was so liberating.
I loved hearing that. I think that the first
now I
night
got to
that
try
we
with
met,
ginger ale because.
What?
So now I got to try with ginger ale.
I think the first night that we met, you told that story, and it was actually a little liberating, because when I'm tasting something in front of people that I don't know, sometimes I hold back on my inexperience. But I think that as I got a little bit older, I stopped caring about what people thought about my inexperience, and I'm like, I'm going to throw questions. I want to understand everything.
Well, and not only that, and I agree with you. Not only that, and I'm at the age where I just get pissy when people do that.
Yep.
Like I will challenge someone. I've sat at a table with strangers.
Yep.
And somebody says to somebody else, "Oh, you shouldn't drink it like that, man." And I'll immediately go, "Why shouldn't he? If this is the way he enjoys that thing, why shouldn't he? Who are you to say what he should do? That's none of your business, man." Yeah. You're trying to prove that you're more knowledgeable about a subject, and all you're doing is being a dick.
Absolutely.
Don't be a dick, people. If you take nothing away from this episode, folks, don't be a dick.
Yeah, and I had to tell you, and knowing that Brent is a wine lover, and I am too, we went on a trip. My wife and I went on a trip to Napa, Sonoma, and Yountville, and had an amazing experience. And my wife was really excited to visit a winery called Jameson Ranch, and it's become one of our all-time favorites. It's becoming a little bit more difficult to find lately, but my point is that we make it there, and I released all those inhibitions, all those pretentious moments where I want to look cool or knowledgeable, and the guy behind the counter, I just started asking all kinds of questions, and I think that's one of the things that was really beneficial to my experience, because I went up and I said, why do people basic questions? Why do people swirl? I mean, because it looks pretentious, but then when somebody told me why they do it,
Yeah.
and experiencing that's something actually I would love to do for a future episode. I know that we do brown liquor here, but I'd like to have a wine episode one day.
Sure.
So
Well, you agreed to that so quickly.
of course he did.
I
He's
love a
Brent.
good wine.
You do love a good
So
wine.
while I was asking him these things, he's telling me about why you hold the glass where you do,
Mhm.
because if you hold it by the globe, then
Mhm.
It's
you
heat.
change heat.
Yeah.
You're changing the flavor.
Yeah.
You swirl it to aerate and aggravate, so that you can get more of an aroma. And then when you bring it up to your face, you don't just take a sip. You like right after you've agitated it, you take a deep inhale of everything first, and then you get all that in your face, and then start to drink, and so that you can really appreciate what it was.
Well, it's very similar to what
What it
we're
is,
doing with
exactly.
our cigars,
Yeah.
right?
And that's why I wanted to say that, because I feel like I'm seeing the parallels between cigars, and whiskey, and wine, and really experiencing things for what they are.
I love that, and I support it. I mean, I feel like we're fairly equitable when it comes to saying, look, enjoy these things how you enjoy them, not just cigars or whiskey or wine, but the stuff you loved as a kid.
Yeah. McDonald's.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, the Big Mac is consistent.
That's right.
But I mean, I kind of feel like that's kind of our raison d'etre. It's like none of us are experts on any of this stuff. We like what we like, and we have reasons why we like what we like, and we're fairly good at articulating them. And that's it. That's it. We can disagree, and we often do, especially when it comes to nerd shit. But that's part of the fun of it. That is part of the robust experience that is, our life and our friendship is that we get to talk about these things and have these conversations and share this stuff with people who may or may not agree with us, and that's okay too. If you are very particular about the way you smoke a cigar, or you only smoke one type of cigar, that's fine, man. That's fine. Just don't be vegan about it and tell us that we should all do it your way.
Fair.
Don't be vegan.
All right. So on that note, now that the two of you have expressed these things on the topic, want to go ahead and bring up the one that I brought for tonight. This one is and I know I'm supposed to say Footloose, but my favorite favorite Kevin Bacon movie of all time, I'm going to take you back to 1987, is a movie called Whitewater Summer.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know that one either.
Cool. That's all right. I encourage you to watch it. Now, when I was a kid, this was one of my favorite ones. It would pop on cable, and I would stop what I was doing and I would watch it. Absolutely love it. And most recently, I hadn't seen it in so many years, but because I had seen it so many times, I didn't make it a priority to, find it again. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and buy it on Prime. And I watched it again, and that's what prompted my need to do this topic tonight. So, Whitewater Summer is about a kind of an adventurist of sorts named Vic, played by Kevin Bacon. And by the way, this cast, the cast has 8 people in it. It's like you see a cast list and it just ranges for days,
Sure.
right? But it's Kevin Bacon, Sean Astin, who is arguably the main character alongside of Kevin Bacon. It's got Jonathan Ward, which I haven't seen him in anything since. Casey Martell, who I haven't seen anything. Matt Adler, who is famous for being a high school punk. He was in Dream a Little Dream as the bad guy as well. And a couple others that are irrelevant for the sake of the discussion. So, Whitewater Summer is about a guy who's an adventurist. He takes kids out to the wilderness to learn how to live in a kind of survival situation. So he takes them out, and he takes them out canoeing. He takes them out camping. He takes them rock climbing, experiencing things that take you away from technology. So the point of the movie focused on breaking from technology of the time,
Sure.
which was simply a radio,
Right.
TV. for radio and TV. And that's actually, so I'm watching the movie, and Sean Astin's character is a kid from New York City, has never really been out of the city. His parents have forced him into taking this trip with these other kids, led by Kevin Bacon. And the characters, a couple of the characters in there have gone on these trips before. They're kind of experienced. They do the camping. They do all the different things. Well, Sean Astin's character is the reluctant teenager.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to do what he wants to do. So his dad buys him a really pretty knife, and so he's got that for whatever outdoor adventure he's got. And Kevin sees that he is attached to this, and he also sees that he's the most reluctant of these. So as a child, I'm watching this, and Sean Astin's character does like cutaways to his slightly older self, who talks about how Vic is basically mistreating him, while Vic is including him in all of these different activities, forcing him to go in the canoe because there can only be two people in the canoe. So he basically takes him on like whitewater rafting, which I know that I've probably got that wrong somewhere, but it's like they're taking the canoe down the river, and they're just dodging waves and rocks and all this stuff. And of course, once it ends, Sean Astin is scared shitless. Gets out of the canoe. He's like, "You're trying to kill me." And then his cutaway scenes are talking about how Vic is continuously mistreating him. He uses a knife to cut into a tree, his initials and stuff, and Vic takes the knife away. The character, Sean Astin's character, leaves the tent poles on the other side of a rope bridge that's just single boards laid up against each other. And, you have to walk across this huge chasm. And if it starts to wobble, you push the rope out and everything like that. Everybody else is cool with this. Even takes him rock climbing, where they do a pendulum exercise. Well, in each one of these situations, Sean gets really, really scared. And as a kid, I'm empathizing with Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm watching this, I am feeling for Sean Astin's character and everything they're talking about. Even Sean cuts away and does a thing where he has a model of the bridge, and he puts an egg on it. Oh no! And then drops the egg and it smashes. And he's like, "Audience, can you appreciate where I'm coming from?" And then towards the end, Kevin gets in a situation where he is losing the faith of the group because they don't agree with the way that he's treating Sean. And Kevin starts to pursue him, and he's like, "No, I won't let you. You can't leave." And he chases him down. Kevin falls off a cliff, breaks his leg, and then they have to get him back to the ranger. And at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, he, basically, elaborates on how you shouldn't mistreat kids. Okay, that said, I go back and I watch it as an adult, and all I see is the Vic character trying to get this kid that will not open his mind to new things. And then at the end, he's trying to, he does lose it a little bit. He's like, "No, I'm not going to let you leave. I won't let you." And he chases him down. I mean, he's not chasing him off of a cliff or anything, but they finally start throwing rocks at Kevin, and they hit him in the head. He falls off a cliff and breaks his leg. And Sean Astin has to construct some sort of an apparatus to hoist him back up and back onto the cliff. So this is my point, really. I know it's a long time to get there, but I'm watching what this Vic character is trying to do, and now I'm on Vic's side. So that was the point of kind of going through all of this, was that I see how, from an adult perspective, that you're trying to break through. And through the whole movie, he is spending time including him on the things that everybody else has tried, but trying to break through to Sean. And he's
That's
just not.
interesting. That reminds me simultaneously of two movies, also from the 80s. One is City Slickers,
Oh, yeah.
which is extremely similar, except that then the City Slickers, have to become cowboys and save the herd and all that. But another one is a very obscure 1980s film by, it was an early directorial effort of a great director that I love named Michael Mann, a movie called Band of the Hand.
Yep.
I
You
didn't
remember
see
that one?
Yep.
Micah, put that on your list. If you like Whitewater Summer,
Okay.
you must watch Band of the Hand. Stars Stephen Lang, who famously played the evil colonel in the Pandora movies,
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah.
Avatar movies. Sorry, but he plays a Miccosukee Indian who is part of a radical rehabilitation program for juvenile delinquents. So they take these 5 hard case juveniles, gangbangers and whatever. They dump them out in the middle of the Everglades to meet Stephen Lang's character, who's a Vietnam vet, obviously, and special forces trained, all that stuff.
What year?
Oh gosh, what year was that? I'm gonna.
It was 80s.
It was definitely in the 80s, but
Okay,
let me.
we'll look it up later.
All right, because we could do a. This is an info break. So during the course of that, he is trying to teach these guys not only how to survive in the wilderness, but how to work together, something they simply do not know how to do or even want to do.
This is Whitewater Summer also.
Yeah. And so ultimately, he brings them back into town, and now it's a different kind of test. They run into some trouble with the local drug lord, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and, you know,
Well, Lawrence Fishburne's not evil.
mayhem ensues.
He's the greatest hero of all time.
Not in this movie. He's not Morpheus in this movie. So I would encourage you to watch Band of the Hand. So that's really interesting, man, that the first time you watch that as a kid, you're like, yeah, that dude's like totally picking on that kid.
Yeah.
And as a grown up, and I would argue a parent,
Thank you. Yes.
you're like, oh, no, that's not what he was doing at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will not deny that that Kevin Bacon's character didn't lose his shit at the very end. It was the height of frustration, not justifying it, but it was the height of frustration.
Like no parents ever done that.
Right.
No.
But
no.
the other cool thing,
I never lost my temper with any of my children.
the thing that I didn't mention is that while Kevin Bacon's character is disabled and he's barely coherent, they actually show Sean's character implementing different things that Vic taught him throughout the movie.
Yes.
And that's the way they got him back to the ranger
Right.
station. You know, Sean's character grabbed the canoe because he realized that while Kevin Bacon was losing so much blood, he's like, I can't carry you this whole way. I've got to get you down the river faster. Got to. And so he rafts down. He loses an oar. He still works it. He implements all the things that Vic was trying to teach him. And then at the end of the movie, you know, Sean's character is still like, you know, I ain't doing that shit again. I'm fine in Central Park with my my level of nature. and it was a little bit, I was disappointed
Yeah.
because I was like, you learned so much. I mean,
Well, it's like you spend your life telling your kids, eat over your plate, turn off your light,
yep.
pick up after yourself. I mean, when does it actually kick in? When they're a parent and they have kids. That's when it kicks in.
Yeah.
Not always. Not always. It's very clear to me now as a middle-aged parent of 3 kids that while I believed firmly that they were not paying any attention, in fact, they were actively tuning me out, turns out it stuck. So a lot of it stuck,
It did.
you know. And one of my children is a girl. And as Chris Rock said, your entire job as a father of a daughter is to keep your girl off the pole.
And in school.
And in school. She is a well-rounded, creative, smart, funny, feeling human being. And my boys, I could not be prouder of both of them. So so those lessons do get through, but, and you went back, you said this word when you were describing Captain America, and I think the 3 of us are our own version of Captain America: persistence.
Yes.
You got to do it. This has been a production of Nerdherfers, copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No portion, and I do mean No portion of this broadcast may be used without permission. Please visit nerdherfers.com for more information and full legal disclaimer, you nerd.